Webull may well be the single best investing app out there, beating out competitors such as Robinhood, Acorns, even M1 Finance. And in this video, I'm going to be going through all the different features in Webull and comparing them to their competitors so that you can decide for yourself what you think of them. I have been using this app for over a year and a half, and I've also used all those competitors that I talked about, so hopefully I can offer some perspective on what Webull has or doesn't have that these other apps do. So with that said, let's dive into the app. Okay, so first off, sorry for the drop in camera quality. I actually used this phone to record most of my videos, so I'm having to use a backup for this. So as you can see here, there are 5 tabs that act as the main form of navigation through the Webull app. Each of these different tabs contains different functionality within it, and one of the biggest criticisms of Webull is that it can be a little bit complex and hard to navigate. So we're going to use these 5 tabs to kind of break it down and go step by step through the app. So the first tab that we need to start out with is the My Watchlist tab that we're on right now. So there's 2 basic parts of this tab. The first is you have My Watch List, so these are stocks that I want to watch. And then you also have My Positions. These are stocks that I'm currently invested in. Now you can see here, the only position I have is ADT. This is just a free stock that Webull gave me when I signed up. And if I open up this stock, you can see all this different information included with this. This is definitely more information than I've seen from any of the other investing apps out there. And it's definitely a trade-off because you get all the information you could ever want, but it's also harder to find the information you want if you're looking for one specific thing. In each of the individual apps on here, you can look at both the quote, you can look at news around the app, you can look at predictions. These are predictions made by the Webull community. So for example, I could predict if I was bearish or bullish on this stock right here. You can look at different analyses in the stock. You can look at press releases. You can even go into the actual financials of the stock here. And this will tell you when their last earnings reports were, how they reported relative to what people thought they were going to report, etc. I'm actually a huge fan of this section of the app because if you see my previous app reviews, this app is the only one that really gives you all the information that you would need with the financials of the company to do a fundamental analysis. So for that reason alone, I'm a fan. Now exiting out of this, let's go back to my watch list. So you can create watch lists of different stocks that you want to invest in or at least track. So let's say I add a symbol here. Let's just add Apple. Okay, so I added Apple to my watch list and now it'll show up here just like the positions that I already own. Now, let me go back to add symbol. So you'll notice here at the top of the screen that there's 3 different categories that I can pre-filter to look for. These are screeners, top gainers, and calendar. So if I were to go to top gainers, for example, these are all of the stocks that have gained the most in the past day, or I could filter by the last 3 months. So you can see here that TKAT has gained the most with 2,000% change in the last 3 months. Now looking at these other options here, I can go to screeners. Screeners are customized criteria that you can set up to decide whether or not you want to invest in a particular stock. So 2 of the examples they give here is I could look for high dividend yield bank stocks, or I could look at high market US value stocks. But let's say I wanted to create my own. I could look at markets only in the United States. I can look at the market cap. So let's say I only wanted to invest in small cap companies. I could look at a financial indicator, so let's say I wanted a PE that was below 12. I could look at dividends, I could look at net margin, I could look at debt to asset ratio. All these different screeners I could set up. They even have all these technical indicators you could use. Now, I personally wouldn't use these technical indicators because I personally think that's kind of like astrology for stocks, but they are there and I could save the screener if I want to. I could give it a name. Let's call it first screener. And if I save that, click on the screener, it gives me all these different stocks that meet the criteria that I laid out. This is some super useful functionality, which I actually haven't used before, but I probably will use after making this video. The last pre-built filter you can use here is by calendar. So you can look at when different stocks are going to report earnings, dividends, splits, etc. So right here we have different earnings. If I open up the calendar view, I can look up any stocks that are, say, reporting earnings on the 12th. Also, if I wanted to build up a dividend portfolio, I could theoretically pick 365 different stocks that each paid me a dividend on a different day of the year, thereby giving me essentially passive income on a daily basis. And then of course, the last option would just be to search for a specific stock you wanted to add. So let's say I wanted to add Tesla. I could search for that, click the plus button, and there we go. It'd be added to my watch list. There's honestly so much functionality in here that I don't want to get into all the different details in here, but if I just click this menu here for more options, I could also look at simulated holdings. So I could simulate investing in different stocks. We'll get into that a little bit more later. And I can also edit the watch list settings for this. So if, for example, I didn't want to look at the symbol, I wanted to look at the stock name instead, I could do that. I could change how the price display looks. I can change the colors. I could even change the refresh frequency. So if I don't want to see it in real time, I could drop it to every 60 seconds if I wanted to. So there's definitely a lot of customization in this app that isn't going to be available in other apps like, say, Robinhood or Acorns or M1 Finance. But next, let's look at the markets tab. Now this tab, kind of similar to the other tab, has, I think, a lot more information than any one person can need. But that being said, you can also customize it so you can can hopefully filter out just the info that you would be looking for. So the first thing we have at the top of the screen here is we have this tracker that shows how the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ have been performing in the past day. This is because right now I'm on the United States section of this tab. So if I went to say cryptos, so we can see here how Bitcoin's been performing over the last 24 hours. We can again scroll down and see different news for this. We can see different comments around this stock that people on Webull have made. We can also see this profile here, which is just a summary written by Webull on what the stock is. Now backing out of here, we can also look at the global market as opposed to the United States, and you can see all these different exchanges across the world that we could look at. So let's say I wanted to look into China. I could click the SSE here, and there we go. We can see how that stock market has been performing. All the news here is in Chinese, so it's not super useful for me, but this gives this app a lot more access to international markets than say most mobile investing apps are going to give you. So let's go back to the United States and scroll down a little bit more on this page. So you can see here what percentage of stocks in these markets have either declined or advanced over the past day. So right here you can see that we've had 2,829 advancers and 3,225 decliners, and we can see how much those have declined or risen by. So if I zoom in here, you can see that in the 0 to 2% range is where most of them fall for both declining and advancing. And as you increase the percentage change on the day, the number of stocks in that category decreases. So there's only 32 stocks that have increased by over 15% in the last day. So there's a lot of other information you can look at here. Here's the same top gainer section that we saw while looking at my watch list section. We can also see the top losers of the day. So maybe these are stocks that I think are undervalued that I could look into. This could be a good starting point for that. I can also look at the stocks that are being traded the most. So these here are the stocks that have the highest volume of trades recently. I can also go down to hot ETFs. So these are different ETFs that I might want to invest in if I'm not interested in individual stocks. And I can also look at the breakdown by industry, as we can see on these cards here. So if I wanted to look at just construction materials, I could open up that card and see a bunch of different stocks that are in that category there. So at the top of this screen here, this is the markets section. I can also go to the explore section, and this is going to give me a bunch of pre-created lists that I can look at. So I could look at, say, a list for environmental stocks, and it's going to give me a bunch of options for that and a description of what this really means. And if I wanted to, I could follow this particular list. Now, if I go back, I could also say, go to these different screeners. We have the pre-populated ones that exist, and we also have the screener that I created, my first screener. Going down a little bit farther, we have any IPOs that are going to come up in the near future. So we have 3 that are available, 431 that are filed, and 572 that are listed. Going down even farther, we have the same calendar functionality that we saw before. So we can look up stocks that will be reporting earnings, dividends, or splits on a certain day. We can look at the 52 weeks high or lows for different things. If you're a dividend investor, this next section might be interesting to you. You can look up specifically high dividend stocks. So this one right here, Aimco, is giving a dividend of 52% right now. If we keep on going, you can look at earnings surprises. So these are stocks that either beat or failed to beat earnings by a pretty wide margin. And now going back to the main screen, there's one more thing we should look at in this markets tab. And that is if you go to the right side of the screen here, there's these 3 lines here for more options. If we open that up, this is where we can actually customize this screen to ourselves. So let's say I'm not a crypto investor. I could remove that from the selected area. And let's say instead I'm interested in investing in Hong Kong. I could add that instead. I click check. Now instead of having crypto in these 3 options, I have Hong Kong, and I can look up different stocks related to that particular area. So the customization for Webull is definitely there, but you're gonna have to put a little bit of upfront work in to get this to look exactly how you want it to look. So now the next section is going to be kind of the core of Webull, and that's your particular stocks. So I'm just gonna call this the center tab because there's no name on it. This right here requires a separate login to get into, and it shows your individual account and what you have invested here. So you can see here that I have $86.97 invested with Webull. Pretty much all of that money is through sign-up bonuses or referring people to this app. In here you have kind of the basic functionalities that all investing apps have. You can look at how your portfolio has changed over a 5-day, a 1-month, a 3-month. And if you scroll down a little bit here, you can see these 3 cards that say quick trade, performance, and transfer. So let me click the first one, quick trade. This is how you can quickly buy or sell a stock if you don't want to do anything too fancy. So let's say I wanted to buy Apple. I could click Apple. I can say I want to buy it. I can set either a limit price, a market price, a stock price, or an OTO. I'm just going to do market price. Let's say I wanted to do 1 share. Well, Apple costs $131 and I only have $80 in this account, so I actually can't buy a full share. Luckily, Webull has the option for fractional shares. So let's say I wanted to only buy a quarter of an Apple share. I could say click 1 quarter here, and I could buy just a piece of an Apple share. Now, the way that Webull does this is they actually purchase a full share and then they distribute fractional shares across their wide base of users. So theoretically, if Webull were to go out of business, you could have a potential risk of losing those those shares. But realistically, if you're investing in fractional shares, it's not going to be a huge amount of money. So this could be a good way to get your toes wet and gain exposure to stocks, especially the ones that have a really high stock price. So I'm going to cancel this order because I don't want to buy Apple right now. But there's also some other cards here that we could click. So if I say click the performance tab, I can see how my stock portfolio has been performing in this account. So over a 1 month period, you can see that I've gained $4.40. You can see how much of that is from dividends, from margin interest, from interest income, from fees, and how much is from trading. So all of that is from trading for me. And if we go down farther, we can see how much profit and loss I've made from all the different stocks that I've invested in this portfolio. So these are basically all the different stocks that I've been given when I signed up. So you have Ford, Viacom, Zynga. So I made a little bit off of some and lost a lot off of others. Now, one of the things that Webull is really trying to get into is kind of a social media aspect. So if you click this button on the upper right here, they give you the option to share the performance on your account. Now, I don't really know why I would use this, but it is a feature that they have. So maybe if you're trying to become a Webull influencer, you could do that there. So we can also transfer money using these cards right here, but also if I click more cards, there's a whole bunch of additional options that I could look at. So I can do all these different account details here. I can look at my existing orders. I can change my password. So the one other tool that I'm going to look at right here is this paper trading section. So paper trading lets you essentially set up an imaginary account where you could say start with $1 million, invest in a bunch of different stocks, and just see how you do. I actually highly recommend this if you're just first getting into stock investing, because it's a good way for you to test if you're any good at it. So if you take $1 million and over 6 months you manage to turn that into $500,000, maybe don't go and put your real money into the stock market and reevaluate, learn a little bit more, and then try again later. Really, the only downside I see with paper trading is sometimes people start to do well for like a couple weeks and they get really excited and then end up dumping all their money into the market. But as long as you have a little bit of self-control, I think this is a good way to learn about stock investing. Now, you'll also notice in the middle of this screen is this little ad that says options trading approved. So if I click on that, you can see what my current options level is with Webull. Now, normally when you invest in options, you have to pass some kind of assessment that proves that you're qualified enough to invest in options because they're so risky. Now, anybody who's used Robinhood knows that these investments can be ridiculously easy to pass. You basically just say that you're qualified and they'll assume that you are. Webull's honestly the same way. So if I wanted to, right now I'm a level 2 in options trading, I can basically convince them to give me whatever level I want. Personally, I don't really use options at this point, so it doesn't really matter, but that is an option that's available. So now let's go to the community tab. This community tab is kind of Webull's attempt at a social network. And surprisingly enough, a lot of people actually use this. So under the stream section here, you have kind of a combination of news that is issued by Webull, as well as social media posts by users of the platform. Now, from what I've seen, just looking through this briefly, this kind of looks like a mix between Twitter and Reddit's Wall Street Bets, with some people posting memes, some people genuinely discussing stocks. It's kind of an interesting community. So also under this community tab, there's also the competition section. So I talked earlier about how you can sign up for paper trading, where you can just kind of practice investing in stocks. Well, Webull actually has a competition that you can enter if you want to do paper trading. Now, I've personally never done this, but again, if you're still trying to just learn, this could be a good way to test yourself. Also under community, you can see top news stories. So these are actual articles published by people like Benzinga, Reuters, Seeking Alpha, etc. Under 24/7, you can see kind of these quick summaries of news events. So Biden creates commission to study potential Supreme Court expansion. It's kind of just a headline, and if you click on them, there's really no more news inside of there. And then lastly, under community, if you go to watch list, you can see news stories specifically related to the stocks on your watch list. So earlier I added Tesla and Apple, so all these stories have to do with either Tesla or Apple. Also on the community tab, if I wanted to, I could create my own post. It's pretty simple. It's just text, images, and links that you want to share out. So you had something you wanted to share with the wider Webull community, you could do that there. So now the last section we need to look at is the menu section. And this is kind of where all the different functionality in Webull that we didn't touch on in the previous sections is available. So at the top here, you have your messages, you have your help center, and you have your settings. So if we go into messages, these are all messages sent by Webull to you. So if you say don't want to receive emails about little changes to your account, those can show up here instead. You can also set this to have push notifications go to your phone. So if, say, a company you are following is about to release earnings, that could push a notification to your phone and let you know about that. Help Center is pretty self-explanatory. This just takes you to their website, gives you a bunch of FAQs you can look at, talks about maybe taxes you need to look at, or anything else you might need to learn about the account. So if you're just getting started using Webull, this might be the place to look. The last section section here is settings. So obviously you have your account and security, but you can also say change the theme of the app. So right now I'm on dark theme. If I wanted to, I could go to a light theme, or I could go straight to black. I could also change the notifications I want to push to me. And if I go to general, I can even change things like the language, the font size that I'm using. So I could make the font huge. And I can even change what the home page of the app is when I first log in. Right now it's the watch list page. If I want to, I could make it the trading page instead. Right under this, you have the promotions. These are just what Webull's promoting at the time. So for example, they have a deposit bonus right now. They're just going to try to get you to add more money to the account. And then you have my free stock. So when you sign up for Webull and you deposit $100 or more, you get 2 free stocks valued between $8 and $1,600. And those stocks can usually vary. Most of the ones that I've gotten have been, I think, between around $8 and $16, $17. And then whoever's link you use to sign up also gets 2 free stocks. So that's why I put a link to Webull in the description of all my videos. You can also actually set up alerts in this section. I can tap plus to create an alert. Let's add Apple. So let's say I wanted to set an alert if the stock price is above a certain amount, 500. I could set an alert. I could say how often it should repeat it. So I could do once per day, unlimited times, once per minute. I can also set customized notes that are going to be pushed to me when this alert is triggered. Or I could even set an alert around different news for the stock or a specific strategy. Now you could get really into the weeds with this. So I could set it so if it passes a 5-day moving average, or even if the trading volume passes a certain amount. So you can get very, very specific in how you want to customize this to yourself. You can also look at any posts you've made in the community here. So if you want to kind of get into the community side of Webull, all your posts are going to show up under my posts. You can also see any favorites that you have here. So if you read a certain news article that you like, you can favorite it and then come back to it here later. Also in here, you have the same paper trading. And then for me in particular, I have these advanced quotes. This is essentially Webull's paid subscription, kind of like Robinhood Gold, except they break it down into much smaller sections. So these are all different add-ons that you can pay for with Webull if you want to, but you don't have to. So you could pay an extra $2.99 a month for real-time data or for the Toronto Stock Exchange. Sometimes Webull will just give you one of these subscriptions for free. That, for example, is why I have this level 2 advanced NASDAQ view. Now, honestly, I personally have never used this, but I think the idea is to give you a certain amount of flexibility so you can customize this to yourself. So overall, Webull is very full-featured for a mobile app. It's comparable to full desktop investment brokerages like Interactive Brokers. I think that if you're an advanced investor who wants to be able to invest on your mobile device, Webull is a no-brainer for you. It simply has more features than pretty much any other app out there when it comes strictly to investing. I mentioned at the start of this video that I've been using this app for over half a year, and even while filming this video, I was finding new features that I hadn't seen before. But at the same time, this huge amount of features can lead to a certain amount of complexity within the app, which might drive away new users. When you compare Robinhood and Webull side by side, Robinhood definitely seems a little bit more accessible if you're first getting into investing, and Webull almost seems like the next step that you take up once you're already comfortable with investing. Honestly, you could almost create a hierarchy at this point, so brand new investors would use Kevin O'Leary's Beanstox, a little bit more advanced investors might use Robinhood or M1 Finance, and then really advanced investors would probably move over to Webull. Now that being said, there are some disadvantages to Webull even if you're an advanced investor, including the margin rates that you can borrow on. So if you have under $25,000 invested in Webull and you want to buy stocks on margin, you're going to have to pay a 6.99% interest rate, which is much higher than most of the competition. M1 Finance advertises a margin rate of 3.5% up to 35% of the value of your portfolio, and that drops all the way to 2% if you pay for their subscription service. Similarly, Robinhood's margin rate is between 2.5% and 5%, and Webull's margin rate will drop to 3.99%, but only if you have $3 million or more invested in their platform. But if you're not just looking for an investing app and you're looking for more of a total financial solution, Robinhood or M1 Finance might better suit you. Both of them offer savings accounts as well as debit cards that you can actually link to your account, while Webull is really only focused on the investing side. But if you want to check out Webull, you can use the link in my description to sign up, and you'll get 2 free stocks valued up to $1,600. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.